Okay, so I would like everyone to be welcomed, the audience who has now screened Personhood, to join us now with a little Q&A with two very important people who are a part of the film. They are Joanne Ardinger. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, Ardinger, it's okay.
Ardinger. She is director of the film as well as the writer and co-producer. Is that correct as well?
Yes.
Perfect. And we have Rosalie Miller, who is the producer of the film. So welcome to you both. Um, I personally would just like to say I commend you for tackling this topic and bringing awareness to it, to people of it through film. It was a very striking thing to kind of be brought to light for me personally as someone who was perhaps subconsciously aware of this topic, or maybe had heard it before, but was never been directly tied to it or known a lot of the details about it. And it's something that's so impactful on so many women's lives that I just really appreciate that you've taken the opportunity to put together this documentary about it. So
Thank you.
I absolutely. I have questions for both of you and some that could perhaps be answered by either of you. So really the film is putting a lens on this idea of personhood and when personhood truly begins, or the argument around that people have different interpretations of, which then has translated into these requested amendments and laws that really turn a woman's life into sort of this shell or host for a fetus that now has rights that perhaps supersede hers, and what that has done to women who have been affected by that law, particularly in Wisconsin. So although, more states than not have variations of that. So can you talk a little bit about, Joe, can you talk a little bit about where the underpinnings of this idea came from, what was sort of the thing that funneled you into this particular topic, and just where it all kind of came from for you?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, after the 2010 midterm elections, it was just so disturbing to see this kind of avalanche of anti-abortion restrictions being passed in state legislatures across the country. And so I was really interested in making a film tied to women's reproductive health care. And then I became aware of the personhood movement. And they had a ballot initiative in Mississippi. And I was really intrigued by it and frightened by it, because when you start to think about the ramifications of a fetus having the same legal rights as the person carrying it, it's really frightening. And so I started digging into that topic because, we've all, we're kind of tired of the abortion debate. People are either on one side or the other, and people have kind of tuned that out. And this just seemed like a pretty scary topic. And because it's so all encompassing, and it doesn't just affect access to abortion care, it affects women in every single stage of their pregnancy, whether they choose to carry it to term or not. And so as I dug into the research, I started learning about these cases where women in this country were being criminalized for suspicious miscarriages, or for drug use during pregnancy, stillbirths. And there wasn't a lot on the topic. So that's kind of what drew me to it. I really wanted to show people that this is something that is so much bigger than the abortion debate. We really need to think holistically about how anti-choice policies affect, the entirety of women's constitutional status in this country. That's how serious it is.
And then from that point, how did you kind of funnel into Wisconsin and the story with Tammy and kind of focus your attention there? Where did that part of it kind of come into play?
Yeah, well, through my research, I connected with National Advocates for Pregnant Women, and they're an organization. They're working with women across this country who have been swept up into these laws in different states. And they had started working on Tammy's case. And so my attention, was turned to this Wisconsin law, which basically allows anybody to detain and report a woman for suspicious behavior. And it was so egregious. And the more I learned about Tammy's story, the more I knew that this would be a really good story to help humanize this issue. And I met Tammy and we had a long talk about what the goals of the film were. And, you know, her main goal was, I don't want this to happen to anybody else. Not another single woman should go through what I went through. And because she was challenging the law in federal court, I just thought that made for a really good story for people to see, you know, how these laws come about, how hard it is to fight them, and then what exactly happens to women once they get ensnared into the law. It's pretty frightening. Her story is really scary.
It is truly scary, and she really seemed to encompass a lot of the different elements and consequences of what happens to women as an effect of the law, the particular law in Wisconsin, the Unborn Child Protection Act. And those consequences are just, they pile up on each other. I mean, you know, there's all the consequences around the idea of lack of representation for a woman and lack of transparent communication with a woman when these things are just kind of like thrown at them without knowledge of really understanding what's going on. The most incredible consequence to me personally watching the film, where my jaw just kind of dropped going, isn't this counterintuitive to what people who are for the act are trying to do? And that was, you know, in her case, when she stood up for herself and ended up in jail, the fetus is essentially jailed as well, and that lack of prenatal care that's happening while the act is quote unquote protecting the fetus. So I thought that was very interesting. I wonder if either of you could speak to, you know, what were the most striking things to you that you learned about as you made the film in terms of consequences or things that were unintended when it came to laws like this?
You want me to start, Rose?
Okay.
I guess
I was muted. Yeah, start and I'll piggyback.
I think Tammy's case really pulls into focus the fact that this is not about protecting the fetus. This is about punishing pregnant women, and it's about controlling women. Jail is the most unhealthy, most dangerous place for human beings. And when you factor in a woman who has medical issues and you factor in a woman who is pregnant, you are putting that pregnancy at risk. And the way she was treated by the guards and what happened to her in jail, she didn't have her medication for several days that she needed for her thyroid condition. She wasn't allowed to go to prenatal care. This just really shows you it's not about protecting the fetus. This is about this endless desire to ban abortion. And pregnant women are really the collateral of that effort. And so I think, to me, the most striking thing is just how capricious this is, depending on where you live, what county. In Wisconsin, this isn't applied equally across counties. There are certain people who are highly invested in applying this law, and it's always down this political line of being anti-choice. And, you know, in the end of making this film, we had that case where the woman in Alabama was shot during an argument and she lost her pregnancy. And the shooter did not face jail time. The pregnant woman did, because they said she put herself in danger by getting in this argument. And so you can see how twisted the logic becomes. And it's not about the babies. It's about controlling women and punishing pregnant women. That, to me, is one of the darkest takeaways from my experience in the film.
You know, when I first learned about the fetal personhood movement, it was actually when I met Jo. And we had a conversation and she shared with me some footage of the film. And you know, what I discovered during the making of Personhood with Joe is really stepping away from this very binary lens that we have about choice versus anti-choice. And I really found that very apparent when I watched the footage of the film. And then the more we talked about it, and the more we shot, and the more stories that we heard and incorporated into the film, you know, there's a real clear message here that, you know, we can't really talk about abortion without talking about the policing and criminalization of pregnant people. And we can't talk about abortion without talking about maternal morbidity for, you know, that exists within the very same communities that are having difficulty even accessing healthcare or safe and accessible prenatal care if they have no intention of ending their pregnancies. So we're really talking about the whole person. And so, you know, you just really see that ripple effect, you know, like Joe was stating earlier, you know, before, during, and after pregnancy. And, you know, just our real, you know, and Joe and I have talked about this, just our real ambivalence and just disregard for the value of women in general, particularly women of color, and particularly women of a certain socioeconomic status that may not be able to safely, you know, and openly access just healthcare. So yeah, I think just really thinking about the whole person, the whole woman, and what that means and where we're at even today, and those stakes. So there's just a lot of nuance. There's a lot of gray area. This is just it's a really complicated thing to talk about, you know? It's not black and white. So I just, you know, I hope that when people do watch our film, that they take away that it is not binary. You know, this is not choice versus anti-choice. There's just so much more to this that, you know, a lot of our experts in the film talk about, like Charisse, and, you know, really bringing to light that reproductive justice framework that encompasses all of it. And I think I just, you know, I learned so much from them and working on this film over the last several years. That was a long answer.
No, that was fantastic. No, and it makes sense that you both have so much to say about it, because as you've mentioned, you know, this is a very complicated webbed topic, and it affects people in so many ways and in different ways, state to state. So I also found it very disheartening as a viewer to really understand and realize that that other unintended thing that is occurring is that women are afraid to get care, you know, because once they do start to fall victim to some of these consequences, or get to understand what could happen to them, they break away from going to the people that they should be, to be receiving the care that they should be getting. So it kind of just goes on and on like a big snowball down a hill, you know, with the consequences of these amendments and laws. I'm wondering, you know, since you did do a good job of bringing in the other side of the coin to represent personhood and that group, and it was great that you were able to interview the lead of the country's part of it. So did you run into any hurdles with that? Was anything unexpected happen when you went to film that part of it? And or were you surprised in any other way about getting that part of the perspective for the film?
They were really willing to take part in the film and to have a chance to say what it is that they really wanted and what they were trying to achieve. And that is one thing that we do, because we look at this in this black and white terms. We put everyone in this box of being, you know, you know, just this hideous person, and, you know, these people must not, you know, they must be awful. And you can see these are people who aren't going away because they just fervently believe this, whether or not we agree with them or not. You know, they have their families, they have their lives, and they fervently believe in this. And but what's so surprising to me in this process is you can see the disconnect. And it's almost like willful ignorance when you ask someone about the criminalizations of pregnant women, and the response is to say, we hear all these horror stories, but that's simply not true. And there's that moment in the film where we had to choose which articles to include about cases because there are so many. And so there is this real disconnect with reality and what their goal in life is. And it's to achieve this goal at all costs. It doesn't matter who the collateral is. I was on the big main organization now is the Personhood Alliance, and I was on their website earlier, and they have what their push now is safe cities. Okay, so they are actually on a town by town, municipality by municipality, trying to get codified into law these safe cities. And so they found that the state ballot initiative isn't that successful. But what if they do this town by town? So that's just to say they're not going away. And I think taking that away is kind of a scary, it doesn't matter, there's no reason there, you know, you can point to a case and they'll say that, you know, I don't know all the details on that. You know, it's almost like watching the hearing yesterday where there was no straight answer on anything regarding the Supreme Court nominee, you know, but you just know that if you've signed on to that opinion that you will stop at no cost until you achieve your goal.
I think it's great that you're able to get some of that in there to balance out kind of the full picture.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to know from either of you what is going on with Tammy now, as well as what has been going on since the film came out in terms of any change that's happened on state levels, just kind of what's happened as a result of the film or since that time. So it's kind of two questions in one. So
yeah, well, I'll speak to Tammy because I've recently talked with her. She's doing great. Her son is doing amazing. He's starting school, and he is extremely energetic and happy and a little musician and just wonderful. And they're doing really well. That's not to say there aren't long-lasting impacts, because she's still concerned about accessing medical care. Not because there's anything she's doing, it's because she doesn't, her trust in institutions has been demolished, right? So despite all that, and because of who she is and who their family is, she's doing really well. And I'm, you know, Rosalie can talk about her impact campaign, but we're just getting started on that. And I checked in on the numbers on the Wisconsin child abuse report, which has an appendix for unborn child abuse. And this law is still being applied as fervently as it was previous. You know, the stats we have at the end of the film, you know, now I have a new set of stats from 2018, and children are being removed, women are being detained. We don't even know the outcomes of all of these because it's still being done in secret. You know, so we're just about to start our impact campaign, and I'd love, you know, Rose can talk about that.
Yeah, sure. You know, the pandemic has really, I think, shifted our trajectory a little bit. And I think, you know, I think this is all connected, but just to speak really quickly about the pandemic, I mean, you know, it's really bad for women. It's really bad for working families and working mothers, and it's bad for pregnant women. So there's a lot happening right now. There's a lot at stake. You know, Amy Coney Barrett, she will probably be nominated. That is going to happen. And so, you know, there's just so much happening all the time. It's really hard to keep up with that. But one thing is for certain, we did acquire educational distribution, and, you know, we're moving ahead with our outreach efforts. And we have partnered with a Portland-based, actually, distributor called Collective Eye. And so the film is now available for licensing for universities, nonprofits, colleges, and government. So that's exciting. And the film is going to be available, I believe, on Canopy, right, Joe? So for digital licensing within the educational sectors, sometime in November, we don't know when, probably before the Thanksgiving holiday, I would think. And then, you know, we're doing, you know, this festival run this fall, and that kind of coincides with, you know, this outreach that we're really ramping up. And Joe is doing a lot more of that than I am, but we do have an impact campaign that's focused on Wisconsin. We are, can I say who we're working with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's all happening so quickly. We are working with a reproductive justice group called Repro Action, and they're on the ground there in Wisconsin in conjunction with NAPW, National Advocates for Pregnant Women. They're also in the film. So yeah, we're working with them right now to really flesh that out and doing community screenings. We're doing an event this week, right, in Kentucky. You're speaking at that, at the Take Root conference.
Yeah, and the Take Root conference is so cool because it's geared towards red state reproductive justice.
Yeah.
And, you know, we tend to just group people in and think they all believe the same thing, but there are plenty of women who live in red states and even vote red who believe that pregnant women shouldn't be thrown in jail. If they need treatment for something, they should be getting treatment. They shouldn't get jail. Or, you know, if they have a miscarriage, they shouldn't be thrown in jail. Just because someone there doesn't trust them. So we're really excited about the conference because that's the beginning of trying to get this message into red states.
Well, I am very excited. Congratulations on the distribution, and I'm really excited that, you know, and it's apropos the timing of with the election and everything going on that you're doing a festival run right now. I think it's great, the awareness that's happening, and that people are getting their eyes on it right now in particular. So Rosalie, were you going to say something in addition?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, we have a lot of plans for the film. You know, like I said, COVID really shifted a lot for us, and we're doing a lot with not a lot really. As you know, as two filmmakers, we're just trying to plow ahead. But one thing I just want to say that the audience can do to support the film right away is if they actually contact their local library, they can request a circulation DVD copy of the film. And so then it's available for free. And it's basically, there's a resource for free for anyone that actually wants to be able to access the film through their library. So that's just a really great immediate way right now, because the film is actually not going to be publicly available, like in a wider, I guess, yeah, it'll be released widely sometime early in 2021. We don't know yet, but we have digital distribution with a different partner. And so we're strategizing that. So I just say that because right now, really the only way that people can see this film is from going to, you know, a film festival or accessing the film virtually, like through a film festival, like with Bend right now, or through their local library. And then, you know, if anyone watching this is a professor, or if they know a professor, you know, at a university or college, you know, they can request an institutional license through collectiveeye.org. So I don't know if there's anything that, you know, we can shout out or maybe give you, you know, so that they know, but it's on our website too, at personhooddoc.com. But yeah.
Yeah, and Rose mentioned our impact campaign in Wisconsin when we're teaming up with Repro Action and NAPW. Our first screening for that impact campaign is happening the end of October, right before get out the vote weekend. So we're getting one in before the election. And then we will have a series of 10 screenings that are geared at fighting 292. Letting women in Wisconsin know this law exists, because not even lawyers and judges know this law exists. And so it's, how do we let women know it exists? We're going to meet with lawmakers. We're going to meet with attorneys, medical professionals. We need to let everybody know. One of the most shocking things for people is the fact that Tammy's medical information was shared without her consent. The doctor who gave that information, I later found out, did not realize at the time that this information was going to be used to detain her. You know, when doctors are being, you know, this was a cell phone conversation over a hearing. It was all this bizarre hearing, you know, with Tammy sitting at a conference phone, very intimidating. It's the same feeling for the doctors when they're told there's this law and they feel that they must comply. And then they're told by an attorney, her medical privacy doesn't matter in this case. So we want to work with doctors, you know, across the country. We're working with other states too, just trying to start planning out. We'll be doing something in Tennessee with Sister Reach and Charisse. I mean, where these laws are, we're going to be really lasering in on letting women know what's going on, doctors and attorneys, and try to work with legislators too to find what's a better solution.
Yes,
so that's the other part of impact.
Yes, that seems like a really additional good perspective to bring to the table, considering the doctor is the one that really ends up with the power in their hands that they may not realize they have, and you can change for a woman in an instant by signing a piece of paper. So that's really interesting, and that's great that you guys are kind of, you know, tackling that perspective as well and bringing them to the table. So, so I guess two last things. So and then we'll wrap it up. Any last thoughts that you want to share with the audience about the film? And then also I would love to know what both of you are doing, if you're completely enveloped in this as it grows into distribution and gets more widely known, or are you also simultaneously working on some other things right now? I'd love to hear about those.
Rosalie is a great
Well, first I just want to say, you know, to your audience, whoever's going to be tuning in to this Q&A, hopefully after they see the film, is to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're Personhood Doc. That's our handle. So across all social media platforms. And I just say that because we post a lot of our updates there. We post a lot of our screenings and information where the film is headed next, which is always a thing when, you know, your film isn't publicly available just yet. So there's that I wanted to share. What am I I mean, yes, I'm working on another documentary for the last few years. And I just now, I say this every Q&A, by the way, because I think it's so important now that I'm a mom to, you know, a tiny human, and this pandemic has been really trying and very challenging for so many of us. And I just now have childcare. I'm able to kind of dig back into not only work, but this other project as well, in addition to working with Joe on our outreach. But I'm working on a local story here in Seattle, Washington, about a queer femme performance artist by the name of Jody Keener, and her stage name is Sherdana Shinatra. And her art is just really unique and really powerful. And so, you know, I spent a good 2 years with her from 2016 through 2018. And then we've been talking a lot more very recently just about what are artists up against, you know, in experiencing this kind of collective isolation that we're all experiencing, you know. And I'm an artist and Joe's an artist, and, you know, and we're artists in different ways. So I think there's like another theme that is starting to come up with this project, and I'm not sure where it's going to go. So I'm just, yeah, I'm working on that piece, and, you know, I hope to have it out late next year. We'll see. We'll see.
Excellent. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm pushing forward with our impact campaign and trying to really, raise the visibility of it. Getting back to the Take Root conference, one of the best things that has happened since, it sounds small, but it was huge, is getting an email from a viewer in Kansas who said that she was the person who went to the March for Life rallies in high school. She really identifies as, a person who wouldn't choose abortion for herself. But she said, your film really opened my eyes because I had no idea how these policies were being twisted and how far the ripples go into the lives of women. And so that was really gratifying because, we're divisive enough as it is. And so if this seems like a divisive subject, but it's just happening in the shadows of something that's really divisive. Mm-hmm. So in the shadows of this abortion debate, you have this issue that a lot of people would just flat out say, no, this is wrong. And so that's what we're really trying to lift the lid on that. So I'm going to stick with that for a while. But I'm working, I'm editing a film for an Indigenous filmmaker here, and I'm really excited about that. It's a lovely, beautiful story about the Salish Sea and a tribe that went on they go on these tribal canoe journeys and what that meant for them, and just how it's revitalized culture and all of that over the decades. And so I'm really excited to be part of that.
Also sounds amazing. Very good projects. And again, I wanted to just thank you deeply for tackling the subject and bringing it to light to people. I can't wait to see you get more reactions and more educational perspective out there for people and for women. And I do hope that it has a positive effect legally, because the power of film sometimes that's what it takes. And so congratulations again on being part of Ben Film. I hope lots of people watch it, and wishing you the best as this continues on its journey into the fall and into next year. So thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you, and I so appreciate being part of Ben Film Festival. This is fantastic. This was on our list for a long time. So
yes, we love this. We love this festival, and yeah, we're really honored to be a part of this year's lineup. So yeah,
awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you and welcome, and enjoy the festival yourselves as well. So, okay, well, we'll end it there. Thanks again, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.